Hey guys, and welcome to Boho Jewel. My name is Sandra. So Debbie had a question about how to price jewelry items, and I think that's a really great topic to discuss. A lot of times what I see at shows, at markets, is people have their items priced way too low. It can be scary, especially when you first start, to put yourself out there. You're excited, you want to make some sales, but don't get desperate. Okay, I've seen stuff again at a show the other week where people had their stuff priced so low that I knew for a fact, because I've worked with those kind of materials, that they weren't even making their money back on their materials. Okay, you don't want to go to the other end of the spectrum where you overprice yourself to a point for your market that people aren't going to pay it, because then you're still not selling anything. So how do you figure it out? How do you go about finding a good price for your items so that you are making your money back on your materials, making some money to spend, and including your tax and including the fact that you have to reinvest to buy more materials? See, that's something people don't think about. If you spend $5 to make a necklace and you're selling it for $10, you haven't made $10. You've kind of made $5, but then if you spend that $5 to make something again, you're kind of breaking even, because that doesn't even include your tax that you pay on the materials, the tax that you are going to be paying to the government if you're actually in business for yourself, or shipping costs if you're ordering your materials online. So it can seem really overwhelming. I'm going to try to break it down for you how I do this, and what I have found is actually overall the most organized and simple way to figure this out and make some money from your jewelry sales. So we're talking about jewelry because that's what the question was mainly about, and that's what I sell a lot of. So I'm going to share with you what I do. So anytime I buy my supplies, whether I buy them online and my shipment comes in, or if I go to the store and I pick them up, as soon as I get home to unpack them, I make note of how much everything is costing me. So with some things like this little bracelet with bezels, it's $2.99. So I already know I have this $2.99 goes into this on top of whatever else I make, whatever I add in there. So that includes all the little inclusions that I put in there and whatever else. So I purchased these little bins, and you can get these at a local craft store. You can find them all over the place. They're just a couple of dollars, but they're great because they have all these little cubbies for your beads, for your jewelry findings, for all your bits and pieces. And I do the math. I figure out exactly how much each little bitty piece is going to cost me. So I take the whole price of what I paid for it and I divide it by however many pieces it says are in there. So I know that all my little jump rings, these little, you can't even see them, these tiny little jump rings, they're 3 cents each. I know that my ear wires, which are trying to stick together, that these are 5 cents each, or 10 cents a pair. My little bezel cups that I use to make resin earrings, 13 cents a pair. Now that may seem nitpicky, and it may seem tedious to sit down and do this and label all of these. I label them all with the little stickers. But this can be your best friend, because when I started doing this, I realized way back in the beginning of my journey and all this that I was sometimes paying people to take my work home with them. And if people are just buying your stuff because they know they're getting an incredible deal and that they're kind of ripping you off, that's not going to make you any money. And I kind of realized that because a lady that had been buying a ton of stuff from me was like, it's so cheap, I can't, I find similar things at Belk and I have to pay twice as much. So that was kind of a red flag to me, and I was like, wait a minute, I've got to change something. So this way I have all of my costs broken down in each piece that I make. I can sit down, I can relax, I can get creative and do my magic and make whatever I want to make. And then when I'm finished with a piece, I can go back, tally it up on a little piece of paper to see how much money is actually in each individual place. You have to do that. You have to know how much you're spending to make something. So once you have that done, right, then how much do you add on there for your profit? So I have heard it said a lot of times, the advice is, depending on how long it takes you, add that much in an hourly wage. So if you wanted to make $10 or $12 an hour making your crafts, then you would say the necklace cost you $3 just in materials, and now you're going to tack on $10 because it took you about an hour to make it. If you want to do that, you can, but I find that to be a little tricky because some people work faster than others. Sometimes it might take you an hour, sometimes it might take you 2 hours. Maybe there's a mistake and you have to start over. So how do you really gauge that as far as how much you're going to charge, right? And if it takes you 2 hours because maybe you work a little slower or you're still new and learning, and someone else only takes them an hour and they're charging $13 for something super similar to yours and you're now charging $23, that's going to be difficult, okay? So my suggestion, and what has really worked for me, is to figure out how much I feel like I should get out of each piece. So that can be very personal, and it can also have to do with your demographic. Where are you going to be selling things? Who is your target market? So depending on the kind of jewelry you make, if you make higher end jewelry and more expensive jewelry, you're probably not aiming to impress like the 18 to 25-year-old crowd for the most part. If you make fun, whimsical jewelry that's more geared toward, teens and tweens, then, you might need to charge according to what parents are willing to spend on their 12 to 15-year-old in jewelry. So it has to do with that, but never undersell yourself and never overprice yourself either. So the way to figure that out, find something similar to what you do. If you look on Etsy or even if you Google, then you can kind of compare similar items to yours, things that are in the same genre. Look at the people who have their stuff priced the lowest and people who have their stuff priced the highest. Now, keeping in mind your talent, your individuality, and how much you're spending on your materials, you can find kind of a happy medium. Because as soon as you start thinking about it in the breakdown of what you're using, you're also going to notice that people might have 100 sales on Etsy because they're selling bracelets for $5 a piece. But if they're really handmade, they're not making any money. So you definitely don't want to price yourself there. And at the same time, you might notice shops that have similar items to yours that are charging 3 times what you know it's probably worth as far as materials and effort, and they're not making any sales either. So finding that happy medium and making sure that you get your money back is a great kind of jumping off place. Now, once you're actually selling your items and you're getting reactions from people and you're interacting with people, you're going to maybe, kind of play around with things $1 or $2, and that's okay too. What I will tell you is it's a lot easier to go down on a price than to go up on a price. So if you underprice yourself, it's going to be really hard to jump it up even $2 or $3 because people will notice. It's crazy, but they will notice. So get your base price, how much materials you're in there. I personally say add at least $10 to $15 on top of that, because if you are doing something that you are really passionate about and you're doing something unique and different, then that's worth like a $10 or $15 earnings, right? So that's my personal opinion. I find that to be a good medium ground. Now, I will say if you're selling online on some place like Etsy, or if you're selling in a larger city, then your prices can be a little higher than if you're selling at like a small town farmer's market or a high school, shindig where they're trying to sell some booths to raise some money for the tennis club or something. But for the most part, there is a little bit of a mindset in the people who come through craft fairs and markets that says there should be like a $25 limit on what they're purchasing. Now, it's not set in stone, but I have noticed with my own items as well as other people around me that a lot of times if something's over $25, it moves a little slower. But don't sell yourself short. Okay, if you know that what you have is worth $35 or $40, don't knock the price tag down because you're just going to get frustrated and irritated. Okay, maybe you just need to find some different venues where people are expecting higher price tags or willing to pay that. I know this seems really confusing. Start with your base price at least $10 to $15 in my personal opinion, and then kind of see where things go from there. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that you need to add your tax, your sales tax, into the cost of your items. When you're selling at farmers markets, at shows, and craft fairs, it's really awkward to try to take something that you have charged, say you're charging $20, and now you have to take a minute to add the sales tax to the end before the customer pays. People aren't really expecting that interaction, because when they go to these kind of shows, they're looking for round numbers, they're looking to keep it simple, they're not carrying a bunch of pennies and nickels in their purses and pockets. They're like, it's $20, it's $20, it's $15, $15. So what I like to do, just to keep things easy, is to determine my cost. Say I've decided I'm selling a necklace for $15, so then before I put my price tag on it, I add my state tax to it. The state tax in North Carolina is 6.75%, so I do 15 times 6.75%. Don't have a calculator, not great at math. Whatever that is, and then I round it to the nearest tenth. So if it ends up being $15.75, then I'll round it up to $16, and that's what I put on the tag. If it ends up being like, you know, $15.02 or whatever it is, then I'll round it to $15, and that all kind of comes out in the wash. Then when I get home, before I record my totals, I divide out my tax and I separate it so that I know how much tax I need to pay back to the state every 3 months. That keeps it simple. I have a ticket on my table that lets people know the tax is already included in the prices as well, and that keeps it easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I know it's not real specific, but to be quite honest, I feel like when you're pricing your work, it is very personal, and it's kind of, it's almost as personal as making the stuff, because you are putting yourself into it. So don't sell yourself short. And, you know, just go for it. Just go for it. Price yourself what you think you're worth. And remember that when you're just starting out, you're just starting out. And if you need to start at maybe a lower price point than your ultimate goal, as you start selling, as your business starts growing, there is something to be said for recognition and people coming back to you, recurring customers coming back, people starting to recognize your name and who you are. And then it's a little easier to even go up $1 or $2 at that point. So, I hope this was helpful. I know pricing is one of those tricky things. It's like the elephant in the room that creative people don't really like to talk about, because we would do this for free if we could. But if you guys have any questions about any of that, please leave it in the comments below. Hit subscribe and stay tuned for the next bits of advice and crafts. I've got some fun craft demos coming up soon that I'll be sharing with you as well. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for watching.